This afternoon on Sports Sunday, the story of a young champion who went too fast too soon. Natasha Barron was swimming times way beyond her coach's expectations and had to rethink the program.
It's a bit worrying for him to come that early and very quickly, of course, but it's always exciting to get a good swimmer, yes.
Melbourne coach Neil Baum was nearly punted by club president Joe Gutnick after the team lost again. The coach was granted a stay of execution, but not before being shown the gallows.
If you took a poll, you would have said 80% of supporters would have said that the coach should go, and are still saying that.
Chris Anstey looks set to become another Australian sports millionaire. The backup centre for South East Melbourne Magic in only his 5th season is being feted by America.
The worst thing you can do is get caught up in the, I guess, pretending you're someone you're not and letting that take over.
Popular English author Dick Francis, now in his 70s, is finishing his 37th novel. Dick was famous in another era, but back then he was known for not finishing.
Down, he went on his belly and he brought his 4 feet up in front of him and his hind feet were out the back.
Tiger Woods won't be allowed to play with them for another 28 years. They're the seniors of world golf, and most are making more money than ever before.
Last year, 9 players on the senior tour made well over $1 million. And before any of them get too much older, total prize money is expected to top the $60 million mark.
English fans and sports writers have already written off their cricket team. They believe the Ashes series will be an Australian walkover, even with a captain out of form.
If I didn't improve over the next 2 or 3 months, I would stand down, yes.
Captain Taylor's summer campaign, Natasha's early peak, and golf's wealthy old-timers, among the features this afternoon on Sports Sunday. Hello and welcome to a Mother's Day edition of Sports Sunday, and a very special ode to mums everywhere. A terrific mixture of features on the show. Before we reveal them, a word from the sports desk. Here's Ian Maurice.
Thank you, Ken, and good afternoon, everybody. Australian cricket captain Mark Taylor has failed with the bat yet again, this time in the limited overs match against a rest of the world lineup in Hong Kong. The Aussies are doing it pretty easy at the moment at 3 for 100 in the 12th over, in reply to the invitational size 8 for 245 of their 40 overs. Taylor made just 4 runs before being caught behind. The other man out was Steve Waugh for a quick-fire 45 and Greg Blewett 3. Sanjay Manrakar top scored for the invitational side with 80, while Rowan Gavaskar, the son of the legendary Sonny, made 51. But the highlight of the innings was definitely this catch by Shane Warne.
Taken it in Aussie rule style. He certainly has. It was a good blow by Mullock. And just look at the ground that Shane Warne has to cover here to his right. Luckily there's not a rope, because I think he would have gone over the rope and the catch wouldn't have been called. Shane Warne just stumbling there at the last minute, maybe a bit of moisture out there at the bottom of the fence, but a very, very good grab indeed.
Well, the weekend's big wet in Sydney and its surrounds has claimed a sporting casualty, with the rugby league clash between Newcastle and Souths abandoned at Marathon Stadium. 100km/h winds and surface water made the Marathon Stadium too dangerous to play on. Now, in last night's games, or in progress at least, 14-10, Gold Coast leading Manly. Do we have an upset on the way? I wonder. In last night's games, two games played. Western Suburbs got home against Illawarra 6-2 in Wollongong, while Parramatta came from behind to overpower Balmain in wet and soggy conditions, 25 points to 14.
The weather at Parramatta Stadium was again more suitable for staying at home drinking hot chocolate, but over 11,000 thought the Eels and the Tigers was a better option, and there was no shortage of action for them. Balmain the first to strike.
As Webber makes some space down the right-hand side, and Jason Webber will go in and score for the Tigers.
Parramatta's Peter Johnston forgot about arms and legs and decided to go in with the head. First Glenn Morrison, then Darren Centre.
Whack. That's why it hurt.
John Simon kept his head on his shoulders, deciding the boot was a better option.
Simon. Heron's out to the right-hand side. He gets it back for Bell, and Bell will cross to score.
Down 8-6 early in the second half, it was Simon doing it on his own.
And John Simon will race away and score.
The worst news possible for the Tigers, their best player getting an unrequested breather.
Again has a go and is penalised. They're screaming for 10 minutes in the bin, and that's what Tim Brasher will get.
With Brasher off the field, the Tigers were found wanting in defence.
Stuart Kelly will do precisely that.
Bubba Kennedy got Balmain back in the hunt.
William Kennedy at pace, and Bubba Kennedy will score.
That's exactly what we talk about.
But the Tigers didn't get close enough. Their night's nemesis stretching the Eels' lead.
Straight through. That's the breather they needed.
Jim Dimmick scoring a 4-pointer just before the siren. Parramatta making it 4 wins in a row, downing the Tigers 25-14.
Dimmick will cross to score.
In the other game played last night, a try by Des Hasler was the difference in West's 6-2 win over Illawarra.
Now, 2 games today in the AFL. Let's see how they're going. Essendon playing Adelaide, and it's Adelaide leading 4 goals, 8 to 3 goals 2. Earlier today, it was the West Coast defeating Brisbane quite handsomely, 21 goals 13 to Brisbane's 8 goals 12. Last night, Melbourne's woes continued when the Demons went down to Fremantle at the Wacker. The Dockers booted 17 goals 22 to Melbourne's 10 goals 9. And St Kilda ended Port Adelaide's 4-game winning streak with an emphatic 65-point win. Stuart Lowe kicking 5 goals in the Saints' victory.
Coming off 4 straight wins at home, some might have labelled Port's impressive entrance into the big time as beginner's luck. If so, it ran out at Waverley. St Kilda struck first, 3 quick goals setting the tone for the match.
Spins it around the corner.
Burgoyne goaled twice in the opening half. That was half his team's tally. The Saints, meanwhile, methodically built a 29-point buffer, Everett dominating the ruck.
He's given the umpire something to think about.
In the second half, there was no mercy for the new boys, as the Saints ran away with the game. Jones from outside 50. Wanganeen played a gallant captain's hand, but Port was powerless to curb the onslaught.
And Hall again!
A late flurry from Stuart Lowe capped a 7-goal-to-1 final term as the Saints turned around their season with a 65-point victory. At the Wacker, the Demons' torment continued. While Fremantle led all night, Melbourne did stay in touch during the opening half.
Alex McDonald, it's his first in league football.
But then tragedy struck David Neitz. A broken jaw sending the star forward to hospital.
Nasty one for David Neitz.
By three-quarter time, the Dockers had kicked their century, doubling the Demons' score. Winston Abraham, a prime mover.
What a goal!
The only sour note for Freo in the 55-point drubbing came minutes from full time when best on ground Luke Toyer was sandwiched and stretchered off.
Now in Super 12 rugby action, Queensland has continued its great end-of-season form. The Reds thrashed South African provincial side Gauteng 40-27, scoring 5 tries to 4 at Ballymore. The South African team is now out of contention for the Super 12 semi-finals after losing its last 4 games. The showpiece of the Formula One season is on tonight, and that is, of course, the Monaco Grand Prix. And the winner of the last round, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, has grabbed the all-important pole position. The Williams driver snatched the #1 position in the dying minutes of qualifying from his German rival Ferrari's Michael Schumacher. World Championship leader Jacques Villeneuve was 3rd quickest, with Jordan's Giancarlo Fisichella a surprise 4th. Nine's coverage is from 11 o'clock tonight. Always terrific, the Monaco Grand Prix, Ken.
Yes, no doubt about that. The best one of the year, I think, anyway. Well, from the Australian. Basketball is looking for the next big thing. After the break, we meet the player who fits the bill.
Yeah, just for the club to send a limo 2 hours down to where I was staying to pick me up and take me to New York and have a look around Madison Square Garden. I was sitting there thinking, what the hell am I doing in this thing? You know, where's my Commodore? Give me that back.
The NBA draft will be held in Charlotte, Carolina next month, and experts have declared there's a shortage of quality big men on offer. It's likely then that teams will be prepared to gamble on a young man from Melbourne. Remarkably, he's playing only his 5th season of basketball. His name is Chris Anstey, backup centre for the South East Melbourne Magic. As Jeff Hutchison reports, there's no doubt Chris is still years from his best. But at age 22, he may be about to become a basketball millionaire.
It was just 5 years ago that Chris Anstey played his first game of basketball. Standing not so much under the basket as next to it, he dropped in 52 points and life changed forever. What will he be doing on June 25, 1997? Waiting to find out if he's been chosen as a first-round pick in the NBA. Waiting to perhaps become a millionaire.
Good effort by Warwick.
If you do go in the first round, you get a guaranteed 3-year contract. Like I said, I'm not sure of the money, but
maybe about $1 million a year?
I believe it's about that. I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth, but I think it is around there. So, I mean, like I said, the closer it gets, the more it plays on your mind a little bit.
Underneath the Anstey.
And why wouldn't it? For this sounds a tall story indeed. A story of a 7-foot kid, a dribbling babe of the boards who blew into the NBL in 1994 with big headlines and no form. Played one season with the Tigers and then moved across town to join a guru named Gorgian and a basketball cult called the Magic. It was a tough initiation.
The Magic supporters, maybe because of all the publicity, expected some, superstar to come out, because so much had been written about potential and, he could be this, he could be that.
When he first came, I think Chris sort of, he'd had all this attention. It was the first time that he had all this attention. And, when you get attention and you're young, and it sort of tends to go to your head a little bit. And I'm not saying it went to Chris's head, but he tended to have, a fairly high opinion that it was just going to happen.
Every time he had anything cheap, he'd pop him one. He'd let him know, and he gave him nothing. No, he'd foul him, and he wouldn't call it. And just to test Chris, to see how Chris would respond.
Did they rough you up a bit?
Oh, they did. I mean, I guess that's a good way to learn. This is how it's going to be. You've got to get used to this if you're going to be good. And, they told me they were going to do it too, and Brian said to expect it.
How many times have you had your nose broken in 5 years of basketball?
5. Haven't had one in a while, but had a few. A couple in the Tigers, and Dorji gave me a couple right at the start. But, it's all just part of learning, and, if you can handle the stuff that goes on at training, usually it's not going to be that rough in the game.
He had to toughen up, and Gorgian, Dorge and Ronaldson made sure he did. Weights every day, 4 hours of training every day. In his rookie year, he averaged just 7 minutes of court time. In his second year, he became the most improved player in the Australian game.
Anstey, good move by the big fella. That's a tremendous...
The turning point came after the Olympic break.
So the Olympic guys come back. We have our first game against Perth, and Chris went nuts. After that game was finished, I would have had 5 calls in the next 2 weeks from the NBA. Chris Anstey, European guys in Europe that are scouts for the Clippers, for the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, in my time, 10 years in this league, I've never had a peep.
Unbelievable, man. We want to run motion, and we want to get the ball to the block.
And I'm thinking to myself, God, man, after I'm handling these phone calls, I'm going, man, I could be doing this kid a real disservice. Because I'm honest. Well, he can't do this, he can do this. And I'm thinking,
millions of dollars.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, God, every phone call could cost Chris $1 million. I said, this ain't right.
Good motion, good
Painfully aware of making the right decisions, Gorgian organised an agent who then arranged for Anstey to spend 10 days with the Seattle Supersonics, the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks. Both coach and player were stunned at what they saw.
Going into their locker room and seeing what they've got in there. Their locker room is bigger than our stadium, Gary Payton's, gold number is worth more than my house, and you don't, that guy walking by, that's $48 million, man.
Just the amount of money they have, the lifestyle they can lead if they want to, and, really nothing's a problem for any of those high-profile guys because they can buy whatever they want and all that sort of thing. And, you know, just for the club to send a limo 2 hours down to where I was staying to pick me up and take me to New York and have a look around Madison Square Garden, then give me